Create Art Podcast. Project NaPowriMo, otherwise known as National Poetry Writing Month. Hello friends, this is Timothy Chemo Bryan, your head instigator for Create Art Podcast, where I bring my 20 plus years of experience in the arts and education world to help you tame your inner critic and create more than you consume. So this month is National Poetry Writing Month. Happens every April. And National Poetry Writing Month is known as NaPowriMo, and it's a creative writing project. And what they do is they give you prompts. If you go to the NaPowriMo website at NaPowriMo.net, and they'll give you 30 prompts for the 30 days in April. Now, on the website, you can also interact with other people. This year is going to be different from the previous years that I've done this project. This year, I'm going to be writing poetry throughout the year, and I am following a different prompt than the one that the National Poetry Writing Month folks do. Now, I've been doing poetry since 1988. I know for a lot of people here, they're like, whoa, the 1900s. But I've been doing it for a long time. I've been writing poetry for a long time and performing my poetry. So this year, like I said, I'm going to be writing all throughout the year. And the blog that I'm using is called Think Written. And the links for that will be in the show notes. I'm also going to be performing these works at Katura Coffee House here in Fredericksburg, Virginia on their Friday night Snaps open mic poetry reading. You'll have a link for that again in the show notes. And a lot of people, they ask me, hey, Tim, why do you do this to yourself every year? And my answer to that is, if I'm going to ask you to be, taming your inner critic and creating things, then I need to be doing it too, right alongside you. So that's why this year I'm doing it a little bit different, but I will be interacting with the poets there on the NaPowriMo site. And we'll see how this goes. I'm pretty excited to be doing it this way. All right, and for today's prompt, it's weirder than fiction. Think of the most unbelievable moment in your life and write a poem about that experience. So this is a true event that happened to me. And this one's called Just Passing Through. So today's prompt is weirder than fiction. Think of the most unbelievable moment in your life and write a poem about that experience. And this is actually based on true events. This is one I call Just Passing Through. I just got on the last bus headed for home. It was dark, cold, and since the windows were tinted, I felt blind to the outside world. My carry-on was in my lap. Turning on the overhead light, I noticed the passenger next to me was reading. I pulled out my borrowed copy of a book. The author isn't important. Someone I should have been enjoying, but this was not a good book to start with. When my seatmate heard me yawn for the 5th time in 10 minutes, he asked me what I was reading. When I showed him, he asked if it was my first time with this author. Yes, it was, and I wasn't enjoying it at all, was my response. I let him know it was a borrowed book from a friend who thought I'd dig it, but it just wasn't working for me. The passenger opened his carry-on bag, handed me another book by the same author. Here, read this. It moves faster than the one you have. I tried to politely decline since my stop was in 5 hours. If you don't finish, take it with you. You can give it to me on the next time you see me. I thought this was preposterous, but accepted his offer. So I read with amazement for the next 5 hours until my stop. As I got up to leave, I tried to hand the book back to him, and he said, "Nope, give it to me when we see each other again." I offered to pay for the book. Again, he declined and said, give it back when we see each other. Taking the book to the place at that time I called home, My mother telling me she wanted no books from Satanists in our house. She wanted to throw it out or burn it, but I let her know it was on loan and it was expected to be returned. She said I met a devil on the bus. I said I met a human, causing the trip home to be contentious. 2 years later, I found myself on another bus. Again, the last one out of the station. I made sure to bring the borrowed book, and just like that, he was there. I sat next to him and held out the book. He smiled and said, "Great, you're ready for book 2 in the series." I took the book I borrowed, and he took the book I borrowed and replaced it with the new one. I asked when he wanted it back. He just closed his eyes and fell asleep. I haven't been on many cross-country buses since then, but I always keep the copy he gave me, just in case. All right, so that was my poem for this day, for National Poetry Writing Month. I hope you enjoyed it. You can go right to the website, createartpodcast.com, and you can go ahead and comment right there in the comment section if you like. Now, something I'd like to ask you is, if you enjoyed it, shoot me an email, timothy@createartpodcast.com. I want to hear about your journey, and I want to hear about what you're working on. And if you'd like to be on the show or, would like to discuss a topic that's giving you trouble, well, then go ahead and email me. Let's start that conversation. I also want to let you know about another podcast that I do, and that one is called Find a Podcast About, and that's where I help you find your next binge-worthy podcast and outsmart that algorithm. You can find that podcast at findapodcastabout.xyz. Last thing I'd like to say here is if you found value in the show, let me know. Pass it on to a friend. If you have ideas on what I could do better to make this a 5-star podcast, I want to hear about those too. I want to be helping you with your art, to be bold with your art, as I do it right beside you. I'll see you next time.